So human beings, we make predictable mistakes when thinking probabilistically. However, we can avoid them with analytics, with additional math to help us. So when we talk about analytics, what are we talking about? We're talking about a systematic computational analysis of data used to discover, interpret, and communicate meaningful patterns.
Put that coffee down.
Creators are leaders. Be careful what kind of leaders you're producing here.
Helen, we're both in sales.
Let me tell you why I suck as a salesman.
They realized that to be in power, you didn't need guns or money or even numbers. You just needed the will to do what the other guy wouldn't.
I'm not leaving. The show goes on.
Well, hello there, friend. Welcome back to the Construction Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Bradley Hartman, and on this show, we bring you ideas and insights from the world of construction every single week to help you lead more effectively. This episode is brought to you by our friends at Capital One Trade Credit. If you're looking at the market and you're understanding that things are shifting a little bit and you want to make it easier for your customers to buy from you with an automated digital platform that makes it easy for your best customers to buy, you're going to want to check out Capital One Trade Credit. Now, one of the activities that I love to do, that I consider a craft, just like folks who are framing or doing millwork or concrete construction or any other craft, I view this in the same light. And this is giving a keynote, of getting up in front of large audiences and helping them think differently and engaging them, having some fun with the intent of planting a seed to help them change their behaviors and run a better business. And one event that is on my calendar every single year, and it is for 2023, it's going to be in Charlotte, I believe next October, is the LBM Journal event. And this past year, it was in Denver, and I was excited and honored to deliver a keynote there that was titled Swinging the Lumber, Adopting Sales Performance Analytics to Adapt and Thrive Regardless of the Economy. Analytics, that's right. This is one area of the business that we have really grown and I've become very passionate about as we've been kind of testing over the last 18, 24 months, helping different clients on two general categories of analytics of clients that we serve. One of them is very relevant to this keynote here, which is sales performance analytics, and helping our clients who sell to builders, how we can help them build stronger teams, look at different metrics, identify patterns of opportunity to ultimately be more efficient and add more value. The other category of analytics would be considered, quote unquote, construction analytics. This is when we're working with GCs or subs, and they have large data sets, and they are trying to think about being more productive, increase safety, run a more profitable business by running more profitable job sites and aggregating this data and attacking it in different ways. And the role that I play is very much a translator between kind of our clients having worked on job sites for decades and then working with our analytics teams that are generally PhD nerds. And I use that in the nicest sense of the phrase. They're really smart nerds, and they're able to code and they're able to look at the world completely differently. And by bringing us all together, we found some really powerful insights, and it's been a lot of fun and extremely profitable in terms of ROI for our customer base. And the idea of ROI, this return on investment, is one of the key metrics that we see lacking from sales performance analytics that we talk about in this keynote that I'm going to share with you today that was recorded in October from Denver, Colorado. Couple quick things to point out. You're going to hear the name of an individual named Brock. He is one of these analytics experts that we've collaborated with for the last several years who've really helped us advance our understanding of how we can help our client base. He was supposed to come to Denver with me to deliver this keynote. However, at the last minute, he could not. And the show, as they say, must go on. And it did go on, and we survived. So we adjusted there. So you're going to hear his name, and you're going to hear references to him, but you will not hear him speak. That's the background for that. If this general idea about analytics isn't really something you're into, here's what I will say. Give it a shot. listen to this, because at the end of the day, what analytics can help us do is help us explain, predict, and change behaviors. And behaviors drive culture. So if you're a leader, if you're a manager, if you care about productivity and culture and profitability, this is 100% relevant to you. And one of the 3 question frameworks that I find immediately applicable with every single one of our clients are these 3 questions that you can simply ask to help people understand what are we looking at. And it is, what should we know, right? What should we know? What can we know? And then what should we do? And too often we see problem solvers, experts, leaders jump right in and say, all right, what do we do here? What's the next step? How do we solve this problem? And what we're encouraging folks to do is take a step back and say, what should we know and what can we know? Let's get that data. Let's get some more insights. Let's look for patterns and then determine what to do. All right, friends, let's dive in. Please enjoy this edited keynote from Denver, Colorado of this year in October of 2022 from my presentation called Swinging the Lumber, Adopting Sales Performance Analytics to Adapt and Thrive Regardless of the Economy. As always, thank you for listening. As we sit here today, let's take a quick look at the box score. What are we dealing with as we enter here today? Right, there's some slow motion changes that are underway. I think for probably many of you in this room, things are still pretty good. Historically, pretty fantastic. Yet there are some signs, there are things that are coming along that 2023 and maybe 2024 are going to be a little bit different, right? I've heard people say, yeah, I'm deathly afraid of revisiting 2007 to 2011, right? And as interest rates creep up, what's gonna happen to us in our business? Is it gonna be a deep recession? Is it a soft recession? What's gonna happen? As someone who worked for a national home builder and worked in purchasing from 2007 to 2011, when we realized we had all the power. There weren't many of us left, and the people that were still building, we could do whatever we wanted. Over the last couple of years, that power has shifted dramatically to you guys on the sales side. The builders, I can assure you, are very, very aware of that. And they have a running checklist of things and people that they want to fix in the future. So as this happens, how are the buyers, the builders, how are they going to take this power back, and what's that going to look like? What's going to be the impact of incredibly high compensation rates for salespeople when they have had to do zero prospecting? Over the last couple of years, the things that traditionally have been hard, knocking on doors, getting rejected, emails unreturned, purchasing people telling you you're 2% high, you're pretty sure they're lying to you, they are, right? All of that stuff went away. But all the stuff that used to be easy, we have a few back orders, we've got to follow up on that. Everything that used to be easy was now hard. And what has happened to the compensation rates for these salespeople has gone straight up, okay? But I would say for folks that are somewhat fearful, right? I would say is, look at what you guys have been able to survive and thrive through over the last 2 years. I don't think it's too far to say that. Granted, maybe I'm not being creative enough. Hopefully there's nothing too creative that's gonna happen in the future that is gonna challenge what we just went through over the last couple of years. So, like any good sales professional, we have to ask the number one question, which is, what's in it for me? So what's in it for you guys? What's the deliverables that we're gonna go over here today? First of all is that I'm gonna argue there's an inevitable competitive advantage available. Inevitable. On a long enough timeline, every domain, every sport, every industry, every century, the people that started thinking differently about the data in their business and how it can improve their decision-making faster had a competitive advantage. And I believe there's a first mover competitive advantage available. Secondly, we're gonna have a very simple framework to help you take this idea and begin to implement this with your team, and we're gonna do this together. This is going to be more of a conversation than anything else. I'm gonna offer up a proven LBM specific sales assessment that we've used with several thousand individual sales reps and over 250 sales teams that can give you some sort of benchmark on where you guys are at now. We're gonna give you specific ROI benchmarks, and I'm gonna make an argument why revenue, gross margin, gross profit dollars, should we track those? Absolutely. The number one metric we should be evaluating now moving forward should be the return on the investment. If I put in $1 into salesman named Bradley, how many dollars and cents shoot out the other side? And we're gonna go through a few of those. And hopefully give you some renewed excitement and confidence that no matter what comes, we're going to be successful in the coming years. I'm also going to argue that prediction is knowledge. Prediction is knowledge. If we can predict what's going to happen, we can learn from it. If we predict and we're wrong, we can also learn from that. A guy named Thomas Bayes, born here 1701 to 1767. So here's what Thomas Bayes found. He found that human beings aren't very good at making intuitive judgments, even when they get more information about the probability of certain things happening. It was called Bayes' theorem. I'm going to spare you the math. But basically, as we get more information, are we able to update accurately the probability of a certain likelihood? You guys with me so far? So human beings, we make predictable mistakes when thinking probabilistically. However, we can avoid them with analytics, with additional math to help us. So when we talk about analytics, what are we talking about? We're talking about a systematic computational analysis of data used to discover, interpret, and communicate meaningful patterns. Human beings are incredibly proficient at identifying patterns in certain things. We see people that we haven't seen 5 years, and we see them from 100 feet away. I remember Jim. Computers can't do that. What human beings are really, really bad at is a printout in Excel and looking at it and saying, okay, other than this one's more than this one, we are not very good at interpreting different amounts of data, especially when there's gross margins, right? Especially when there's different branches and there's different variables and different quantities and inventory levels. We are not good at this. We need help. Now, I know some of you are thinking, yeah, analytics, we do this. We use Excel. Actually, we have a nerd in the back. He uses pivot tables. We already do this. No, you don't. Now, can you do analytics with Excel and pivot tables? Yes, you can. And if Brock was here, he would tell you, you're just using the technology from 30 years ago. You're like, well, I use Power BI. Fine. But that's not true analytics in the term that Brock would characterize it. And he said, when he was getting his master's, if he opened up his laptop and opened up Excel, you fail your master's class. Why? Because you know why. People mess with the formulas, they fat finger things, and we screw it up, okay? So how do we code it? How do we make it systematic? We began our journey down analytics 3 years ago, conversation with Brock, when we were using an Excel template, had formulas, and every year we'd put another $1,000 in it to automate it, and then we went to Power BI, and our goal was to help our clients forecast more predictably. Forecast in the future, customers, prospects, what's the probability we're gonna land them, and think ahead. And he looked at this and he says, you don't wanna do this. You wanna automate the data coming from your clients. You wanna automatically have code that scrapes for that data and puts it in a visualization that makes it obvious what we're trying to figure out. So I'm gonna make the argument you should be trying to build a data culture. So where do you start? We're gonna do this together. Every time I show this slide, I want you guys to say it out loud with me. These are the 3 questions, super simple questions that you can take back with you. The first one is, what should we know? I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna snap my fingers and I'm gonna go like this, and you're gonna say, what should we know? Let's try it right now. What should we know? Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. That was loud and proud. I appreciate it. Number 2, count of 3, 1, 2, 3. What can we know? And the last one is, we're not gonna do this one because you guys already know this. What should we do? And too often when things happen, what do? We jump into action. We're ready to go. I'm ready to jump on the forklift. I'm gonna drive out there. I'll hot shot. I'll do whatever it takes. I would say, slow down. What should you know? What can you know? Then we'll figure out what should we do. And too often we have so many successful people that have been promoted and are leaders in organizations because they are problem solvers. They hear something and they intuitively know what to do and they jump in and they make it happen. And we skip these 2 first steps of what should we know and what can we know. I'll argue a data culture leads to predictable outperformance for 3 reasons. 1 is quantifying problems better. 2 is visualizing insights sooner. And the 3rd part is eliminating biases faster. And what's the goal? At the end of the day, this is explaining, predicting, and changing behaviors. That's what culture is. Culture is a collection of behaviors. The things that we agree upon, this is how we behave, and this is what we do, and this is how we talk to each other. This is what we're doing for. Now, a lot of people think, hey, 2003, the book Moneyball came out, kind of changed everything, and now there's Moneyball for soccer, and there's Moneyball for stock picking, and there's Moneyball for anything. In our industry, we look at revenue, gross margin, gross profit dollars. That's what we look at, right? And I would say, are these important? Yeah, of course they're important. But we're looking at the wrong things. I believe we should be looking at sales rep ROI, the return on the investment. We should be looking at what I call AMP value, which is simply the annual monthly pipeline. In our industry, a lot of what we do is look backwards. We got to start looking forwards, especially if we're heading into recessionary times. What's our forecast? Prospects, we're gonna have to prospect again. Prospecting customers, what are we gonna do in the future? And how can I predict better to have that knowledge and confidence that we can grow our business throughout any economic condition? And the last one is customer cost to serve and customer profitability. And we're gonna kind of hit each one of these here. So what's the problem? What are we dealing with? We touched on a few of them, right? We got consolidation going on in our industry. There's still plenty of private equity money that's out there, dried up for the moment as interest rates go up. A lot of these guys are really smart folks at Bain and KPMG and McKinsey who are trying to figure out, after we pay 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever the number is, times EBITDA for a business, how do we get our return on investment for that? What do you think those nerds are gonna do? How are they gonna figure out how to squeeze more profits during a recession out to pay for that acquisition? We got rising interest rates, we got an overdue recession. That's what we're dealing with. Right now, we are in the midst of the greatest compensation experiment in the history of our industry. What happens to a salesperson's behavior? What happens to an inside salesperson's behavior? What happens to the team over a 2-year period? We take the lowest guy who wasn't very good to begin with, and we double his salary. The top guy, we triple his. I have salespeople that are making $500,000. I've got salespeople that are making $1 million. I've got 2 clients, top salespeople made over $1 million. Now they're being paid like a backup left fielder for the Yankees. What happens when that comes down? What does it do to your culture? What do you do when other people say, he made $1 million last year? Yeah, he was working hard. But he was working hard and he was making $500,000. What does he do to his retirement schedule? These are all questions we're gonna ask. I believe there's a fundamental misunderstanding about how we pay salespeople and what we ask them to do. So on the bottom, you have earning new business, and then we have to maintain that business. And there's a different level of expertise that happens. And I believe, we're gonna come back to this in a minute, this is called a power curve, which means we have a few teams, we have a few individuals on the left-hand side that perform extremely highly, and then it slopes down very, very quickly. And I believe you have a few people, somewhere between 5 to 7% on your team and in the industry who love to sell. It's the number one question I ask when I work with a company. You got 5, 10, 100 salespeople. How many people love to sell? Knock on doors, get rejected, overcome objections, fight their way through, negotiate like hell. How many people love that? It's about 5%. Half of one person on a team of 10. About 5% of people love to do that. These people, scarce resource. Pay them whatever you want. You want to pay them $1 million for the last 2 years? I don't care. They're worth it. Everybody else, the people that are babysitting annuity accounts, people that are account managers, people that are doing customer service, right? That are supporting sales, is it important? Absolutely. I'm not talking down to these people. I would just not call them salespeople, and I would not pay them a ton of money. I believe there's an abundance of these people who want to take care of people, and they'll say, I said, do you love selling? They're like, no, it's horrifying. I say, it says salesperson on your business card. Like, I know. We have an entire generation of salespeople that started maybe in 2013 that have worked for a decade. Have they ever had to prospect? Nope. Every year's been a little bit better than the one before it. We've had some baby boomers retire, new accounts come their way, builders come out of the recession, they're growing. They're not selling. So now we have to figure this out. Is account management, sales support, and customer service important? Obviously, yes. It is not selling. These are not sales activities. So again, back to our question leadership. What should we know? What's the impact of inflation on sales? Do we know that down to the penny? What is the sales rep return on the investment? What's the true customer profitability? And do we have an idea of our market share? Is it hard to figure out market share? Yes. Can we get close? Yes. There's numbers available. Do we probably need someone else outside of our team to help us do it? Yes. But it's figure-outable. So we have this framework called the C5S, kind of to understand the boundaries and constraints of what we're talking about when we talk about sales performance. It starts with sales culture, something we've talked about throughout this entire conference, sales strategy, sales squad. Then we have our sales process, our sales skills, and our sales tools, okay? So if you guys are interested, this is a 60-question assessment, 10 questions per each one of those 6. Culture, strategy, squad. If you want to pull this up now, you can follow along with me. The 61st question is put your name in there. If you put your name in there, we can send the data back to you guys. So you can kind of see as a benchmark where you guys stand. If you don't want to do that, you will get an immediate score. So the idea is we just have a handful of questions. Hey friends, Bradley Hartman of the present, interrupting Bradley Hartman of the past. I wanted to add a quick note here that if you are interested in taking this 60-question sales assessment to understand where you stand along these dimensions, be happy to send it to you for free. And if you want to share your name so we can figure out how to give it back to you, we will gladly give you those results. So you can email me directly at Bradley Hartman, two N's, and co.com. Again, Bradley at Hartman and co.com. And as we go through these subsequent slides here that you are not able to see because it's audio only, if you're interested in seeing what these slides look like and the graphs and what other data we share, do not hesitate, again, to email me directly at Bradley at BradleyHartmanandCo.com, and we'd be happy to share that if you were not in the crowd in Denver. All right, back to the keynote. So number one question, we talk about the culture. We have a strong sales culture built on goal setting, training, accountability, and results. Question two, each salesperson has 100% clarity about the goals of the organization and their specific contribution towards it. So the idea is it's a five-point Likert scale answer. Strongly disagree, neither agree or disagree, agree, and strongly agree, okay? So I'm gonna show you some of the responses here. So sales culture, we have a small amount that strongly disagree. And overall, all of those answers, the more you agree or strongly agree, the better off you'll be. And then white is neither agree nor disagree, and then strongly agree. Here's what I'm always trying to figure out when we start with a team is what percentage of folks either strongly disagree with these questions. We have a sales process. We train people on it. We learn specific skills to apply at different parts of the sales process. We have specific tools we use at different parts of the process. What I'm looking at is what percentage of folks either can't agree or disagree or some version of disagree. And you look across the board, I could argue that all of these are too high. And 100% of these fall into the category of control what you can control. You guys can train your people, you can reinforce this, you can lead them differently in sales. 72% on sales tools. But if I ask a person in sales, I say, hey, what are your top 5 sales tools? Like, you mean like samples? I'm like, sure. Business card? I'm like, sure. What else, right? And then we start thinking about them. Some folks, we haven't updated them in a long time. Other time, marketing is creating all these sales tools. How often do you guys talk to marketing? They just do the barbecue. I don't talk to marketing. Okay, right? So what are we looking at when we talk about sales rep ROI? We're looking at all these sorts of things. Again, client determines these: age, revenue, gross margin, gross profit dollars, new accounts, those things. We're also taking a look at what's coming out the other side. So commissions, FICA, medical, 401k, phone, fuel, training, takeoffs, Paradigm, you guys here? Yeah, I'm factoring that in, Chase, for you guys. Swag, all these beautiful hats I just gave to my ginger friend. Cost a lot of money, right? So we factor all that in. There's a cost to doing business. What is it? So I'll often ask is, if we think about the minimum return on investment from a salesperson. So if $1 comes in this side, what's the minimum amount that I would expect out that side to be a positive ROI? It's the minimum number. $1 comes in this way. How many dollars and cents do I need at the minimum to go out that end? All right, I'm gonna cut to the chase. It's $1.01. That's the minimum number, right? But what's a good ROI? Anybody, who tracks this in here? $1 comes in here. What's an ROI of my salesperson? Who tracks it? You look for 5, okay? $1 comes in here, 5 goes out there. Sounds all right. Anybody else want something higher? Okay. So we tracked 170 sales reps from across the country, and we break the ROI down by month. So how many months is that? From 2016 to 2021, that's 6 years. And we break down by month. That's 12,461 months for the data that we see here. So these are aggregated around the country, showing the low end, the high end, and the number in the middle is the median. So we see this range. So if someone says, I don't know, $5, that sounds good. $7 sound good? What should we expect? And this goes back to the fundamentals of what should we know, what can we know, and then what should we do? A couple people mentioned this, right? We talk about average. Oftentimes we think about average. We look at large groups of numbers and we say, what's the average? How are we doing here? What's the average year over year? What changes? I would tell you, forget about average. What drives your business is not the average. It does not. If we look at the World Series win by team, we have any Yankees fans in here? Put your hand down, Jay. It was a trick question. Nobody should be a Yankees fan, right? This is called the power curve. We have one team that has run 27 championships, and then it slopes down dramatically. Do we have any Chicago Cubs fans in the room? Hey, there we go. No, we can clap. There we go. I have gifts for you guys. Come up at the end, okay? Yeah, 2016 World Series champs. Any Cleveland Indians fans? Yeah. No, I had no comment. I was just reliving the 2016 Game 7 World Series championship. All right, so where are the Cubs? Historically, where are the Cubs? About average, right? But that doesn't tell us anything about who actually wins, right? This is called a power curve. Power curve drives your business. It's a visualization of data that, unless you see it this way, jumps out at you and hits you over the head like a 2x4. So this is a power curve. So this is a single location lumberyard. A client of ours sold a lot of roof trusses, a lot of framing lumber, EWP and plywood. By the time you get to number 5 windows, it's about 20% of the number 1 sales category. From 1 to 5, we drop down 80%. We look at a sales rep performance who works for a distributor. Number 1 client, about 425,000. Next one's just under 400. By the time you get to number 5, you drop about 80%. You look at a sales rep. These next 4 sales reps are 1, 2, 5, and 10 for the same company. This guy made $1 million last year, last 2 years. Number 1 account, 45 million. Number 2, 6.5. This is a power curve. The power curve drives the numbers in your business because not all customers are created equal. And I will often ask a salesperson, if I'm looking here, show me the customer who's the biggest pain in the neck, who calls, who gripes, who haggles, who doesn't value what you do. Where do they fall? And normally it's right around there. It's from like 7 to 11 to 13. Why? Because normally our best customers, they value what we do. Quite frankly, a lot of them have their stuff together. They don't need a whole lot of your help, right? It's the one further down that are disorganized, and they're the biggest pains in the neck. These are the customers that we need to identify, and we need to gift them to the competition. And will your salesperson freak out if you suggest you take my number 13th account and give them away? They will lose their mind until you make them do it, and they're like, I have a lot more time. I never like dealing with that guy anyway. Power curve drives your business. The last thing we need to do is we need to eliminate biases faster. All right, so let's talk about biases and customer profitability. We have biases that we have when Matt's one of our best customers. He buys $1 million a year. You show me how he's not our best customer who's fueling our growth. And I'll say, okay, what should we count? What should we know? What can we know? And then what should we do? So we take a look. What do we look at? We look at revenue. We look at gross profit dollars. That's smart. Then we start adding up the things that are extracting from that. Quotes and orders, trying to figure out the efficiency of our salespeople. What is limiting your growth is not people, it's time. How much time do they have? And what takes away the time of your sales professionals? Special orders, deliveries, credits, returns. You guys are already tracking all this. It's been interesting when we do track OSR, outside sales rep communications. How many emails, how many calls, how many texts come in? Don't even get me started for the people that are still using fax machines. It's almost 2023. I'm not even going to ask for raise of hands who still has a fax machine. How many of you guys have customers that feel it's okay, I can just call up the president and talk to him whenever I want? But we want to be relatable. We want a flat organization. There's a cost to that, okay? Credit card fees, days sales outstanding, you guys track those. I would also say we also need to track the things that make our best customers even better. Our salespeople aren't asking nearly enough for referrals, and people will gladly give referrals when you do a great job. And I say referrals aren't enough. I challenge our clients, I don't want a referral, I want an introduction. I want you to take me to the bar and introduce me to your buddy who's building 12 homes next year and tell him to his face in front of me that he's an idiot for not helping us, not working together with us. I want an introduction, I don't want a referral. But we should count both. I want ideas, and there's a limited time where you can get some transparency from the builders before they're not gonna give that to you anymore. I also wanna look at the potential. Of all the things that this guy's buying for his 12 homes next year, what's everything he's gonna buy? That's a big number. How many of those things can we sell him? That's a little bit smaller. And then how many things do we sell him? That is much smaller. And I would challenge salespeople is your job isn't to sell what you feel comfortable selling. Your job is to sell everything that we offer. And if you don't believe that if we get cabinets involved, they're gonna screw up the whole thing and you're gonna lose the entire account, then it's your job to get with the cabinet team and get with operations and figure out how to make it profitable or kill the business. The other thing is we try to look at the tail of the tape. What's the total annual purchasing estimate? What are they buying? Do I truly understand what wallet share I currently have and how we can grow it to deliver more value? As someone who bought for a national builder, I can tell you, if I know, like, and trust you, we save a ton of time when you and I can work together and you can invoice me for more product categories. It's a fact. The other thing that we got to start counting on 6-4-3 is shortstop is the number 6 position, 4 is second base, 3 is first. Shortstop flips to second base, double play over to first. We need to start really evaluating our inside salespeople, our outside salespeople, and our customers. This is probably the least intuitive way that you can understand unless it is visualized. So if we have sales on the bottom and we have margin on the y-axis on the left-hand side, and we understand what those averages are, this is the single most important tool for sales management that requires no communication. You literally just send out this graph. And then I will just go and I'll start plotting Sarah and Pablo and Sue and Bill, and I just put the salespeople just to show them where they stack up against their fellow salespeople. And you don't have to say anything. You just send this graph out, and the question is, how do I get above the line? That's what people want to know. How do I get above the line? And you can do this by product category, you can do this with customers. If you have multiple branches, you can plot out the branches. From a sales management tool, if you update this and just send it out, you don't have to do any more coaching. Now, I know some of you guys might be saying, hey, it's fine. My market's different. We don't really do that here. You know what? Your competition might not be doing it. You might be true. Last year at this event, how many people were at this event last year and saw Greg Templeman get up there and blow everyone's hairs back? Where is he talking about his pricing analyst he hired and the 23 different ways he slices and dices something, I don't even know what it was. Now, he's not doing predictive analytics yet, but he's going to, which is taking all the data, and you guys have this data going backwards, and now you say, what are we going to do in the future? So for predictive, right, we're doing some modeling, we're doing machine learning, which is kind of a fancy way to say is we have a machine that's telling us what's the difference between our prediction and what actually happened, and how can we learn from that? And I'll give you an example. The client of ours who's going into the 2022 budgeting season around this time last year. And I said, I want you guys to do the typical budgeting process you do. Sales managers came back and said, done. 2022 budget should be at least 29.5% lower than 2021. So that's oddly specific. Why? No way 2022 can be better than 2021. And my incentive and my goals are all based on that. 30% lower, 29.5. I said, okay. So we looked at board feet, square feet, linear feet. So for studs, panels, EWP. And then we did revenue and we did counts. And we adjusted for inflation. Now this is where Brock would come in and would normally read this slide. You need someone annoying like me who's going to ask 1,000 questions to basically understand it. And then you need an economist, nerd, coder who can actually do this. So what we did is we looked for almost 30 years of publicly available U.S. Census information on monthly lumber and construction materials. Then we took the average historical monthly lumber future sales data, divided by the total monthly sales of lumber prices to come up with a general number for historic LBM sales. Standard deviation, I know it's a thing. I don't know what the hell it means, but it measures volatility, and they did it, okay? And then what they said is we're going to pair this with the client data that came out of BizTrack, and we gave them a range. Not going to pin a number. We think it's going to be here to here. And our range said it's going to be somewhere between 2 or 3% worse than last year, maybe 2 or 3% better. The sales manager said, I'll bet that. I'll put money on the line. We have a steak dinner. If 2022 was within 3 or 4 points of 2021, which we already know it is, they're going to buy us a steak dinner at the end of the year. So they ran the math and we came up with a range in the future. Some of the stuff we got right, some we got wrong. Some of the counts were right on, some of the counts were way off. But these are things that we can count. So again, prediction is knowledge. And if the prediction isn't right, it gives you the ability to learn. Not everyone's going to be along for the ride. You're going to have some people that say, we've been successful for 100 years. This is the way we've always done it. We don't need more math. I never liked math in high school anyway. That's fine. But on a long enough timeline, this is inevitable. And yes, no one can predict the future, but your jobs as leaders is to look ahead. Your job as leaders is to look in the future and say, whatever that future holds, we're going to make sure our team is prepared to thrive in that. That's your job. And we think back on Ted Williams. He wrote a book called The Science of Hitting. And he determined his strike zone was 11 balls high and 7 across wide, 77 balls. And he did his own math on every at bat to determine his batting percentage for every single one of those pitches. He did it. He did the math. And he also posed this question. This area outside there, he said, if I give the pitcher 2 inches more around that strike zone, what percentage increase does the strike zone get? Anyone take a guess? So you got your strike zone, 11 balls high, 7 across. I'm going to give you 2 inches. I'm going to give you this much around the outside. How much larger did that strike zone grow to? 25? Okay. Anything else? Lower, higher? Higher? Give me a number. 45? It's 35%. And in the book, he lays it out and says, you can do the math yourself if you want to. And I did, and he's right. But I find that non-intuitive. Just 2 inches around the outside, a 35% increase, right? So we saw this Williams shift. I don't know about you guys. This happened in 1946. I went to a lot of baseball games. I lived around Wrigley Field for 8 years. In those 8 years I lived there, I went to almost 200 games. You know what I never saw? Was this. When did this start happening? Last 7, 8, 9, 10 years, right? My entire childhood watching games on WGN, going to games, I never saw this. What is this? This is the identical Ted Williams shift by the Houston Astros. Now they're going to outlaw shifting. Why? Because everybody does it. My question is, what the hell happened between 1950 and 2010? Why did we stop doing it? Do we ever find stuff that works and it works really well, and then we just stop doing it? We have to learn it again later? This is the same exact thing that's happening here. So what's in it for you guys? Again, we talked about this inevitable competitive advantage. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it's going to happen in your market at some time. We talked about this simple framework. Let's finish it loud and proud. And again, the 3 stats I would challenge you to think about in your own operation. And again, you guys have the data. In almost every case, you guys have the data. The return on investment for a salesperson. $1 comes in here, how much flies out over there? Figure that out. What's the AMP value, right? Which is the average monthly pipeline value. We have to start forecasting in the future. When I ask salespeople to forecast out 4 months, they look at me like I just asked the most ridiculous question ever. That should not be the case. And lastly is the customer cost to serve and true customer profitability. Why? Because our job is to change culture, and that starts with behavior. If you guys are interested, we are going to be starting doing our own roundtable in fall of 2023, and we are going to be using analytics for anyone who's part of that. So if you're interested, I'll give you a card, and we can kind of talk about that in the future. Any folks here from Capital One Trade Credit? They're a sponsor at this event, sponsor our podcast. If you guys don't listen to this, we try to do our best, try to deliver value first. A lot of people in this room have been on the show. I try to ask good questions and keep my mouth shut. When humans make predictable mistakes, when thinking probabilistically, using analytics, we can make it much easier. And just like this bag, right? So every day, every week, every month, every quarter, every year, you guys are getting more data on the performance of your salespeople. The question is, are we using this to update what we think and we know? So when you go back to your teams, I would just start with, well, you know you're not going to be a problem with what should we do? What should we know? And what can we know? All right then, friends, how did that go? Hopefully you took away an insight or two. And again, if you're interested in taking our C5S, culture, sales strategy, sales squad, sales process, sales skills, and sales tools, 10 questions along each of those dimensions, feel free to email me directly at Bradley@BradleyHartman&Co. And again, if you're interested in seeing any of these slides, no, I will not send you my entire slide deck. Yes, I'd be happy to share some individual slides if you think that would be helpful for you. If you are interested in getting any help when it comes to analytics, what we have found in talking to our clients, this can cost far less than you had imagined. And again, we are 100% focused on the construction industry and in 2 broad buckets: sales performance analytics, which we have a lot of experience in here, and that's what we're talking about in this keynote, but also construction analytics, which is working with our clients who have large data sets. And these are generally GCs, but also some subs, to help you answer specific questions about how we can explain, predict, and ultimately change behaviors to be more productive, to be more profitable, and have more fun building America. So if you are interested, you can go to BradleyHartmanandCo.com. The easiest thing is to scroll all the way to the bottom to our footer, and you will see sales performance analytics, and you'll see construction analytics. so you can understand our process, the way we collaborate with clients, and to see if it is a fit for you. So that's it. Next step, if you're interested, but analytics and AI and machine learning, all of these things will absolutely be a part of the future. And I think for the companies that already have a competitive advantage, they are using this now to make better decisions. So if you're interested, don't hesitate to reach out. I want to thank our sponsor, Capital One Trade Credit. If you are interested in increasing revenue while decreasing risk, you are going to want to check out Capital One Trade Credit. How would I recommend you do that? I would use Google, and I would just Google Capital One Trade Credit and follow your nose from there. As always, thank you for listening. If you have ideas for topics, suggestions for improvement, or guests, anything we can do to make this podcast better, I personally want to know. You can email me directly. You can come right into the house. You can email me directly at bradley@bradleyhartmanandco.com. We want to make sure this is worth your time and your attention. We love doing it, and we always want to try to get better. So with that, we're going to close out with our leadership mantra. You, my friend, are owed nothing. Deliver value first. Make it a great week.